Poor mother takes daughter to buy birthday present with only 40, but a young billionaire sees everything and does something unexpected. The first ray of sunshine entered through the small apartment window. Emily opened her light blue eyes and jumped out of bed like a rocket. "Mommy, Mommy, it's my birthday." The high-pitched voice echoed through the rooms. Claire woke up on the couch, where she always slept to leave the bedroom for her daughter. Her blonde hair was messy, but her smile was immediate. "Happy birthday, my princess!" Emily ran and jumped into her mother's lap. Her golden curls bounced as she laughed, her blue eyes shining with joy. 5 years old. Now I'm a big girl. Claire hugged her daughter, feeling her heart ache. 5 years. How quickly it had passed, and how difficult it had been. "Shall we have a special breakfast?" "With pancakes?" "Of course." Claire glanced discreetly at the wallet on the table. $40. That was all she had until the end of the month, but it was Emily's birthday. It had to be special. In the small kitchen, Claire made heart-shaped pancakes. The sweet smell filled the apartment. Emily clapped her hands when she saw them. "You're the best mommy in the world. And you're the best daughter." While they ate, Emily chatted about school, her friends, her dreams. Claire listened to every word, committing it all to memory. "Mommy, Emma got a beautiful doll last week. Her hair was just like mine." "Really? And Sarah has one too. All the girls in my class have pretty dolls." Claire felt a lump in her throat. She knew where this was going. "But you have your doll too, remember? The one we got last year." "I know, but..." Emily fidgeted with her fork, making a face. "So it's just that mine is different." Claire understood. Emily's doll was simple, bought at a thrift store. It was functional, it was loved, but it wasn't like the other children's. "How about we go out today? We can take a walk downtown and see what we find." Emily's eyes sparkled like stars. "Really, really? It's your birthday." After breakfast, Claire counted and recounted the money, $40. Maybe it would be enough to buy something nice, nothing too expensive, but something that would make Emily happy. She calculated mentally. She could afford a decent doll and still have a little left over for food for the week, though it would be tight. They got ready carefully. Claire put on the light blue dress that Emily liked best. It was simple, but it brought out the girl's eyes. Claire chose a white blouse and the jeans that were still in good condition. "We look beautiful," Emily said, twirling in front of the small bathroom mirror. Claire smiled, adjusting her daughter's curls. "Yes, we do." The street was busy. It was Saturday morning, and people were taking advantage of the good weather to go for a walk. Emily held her mother's hand tightly, observing everything with a child's typical curiosity. "Look, Mommy, that dog is just like the one at school. And that lady has hair like Grandma's. Mommy, why is that man wearing a suit on a Saturday?" Claire smiled at her daughter's comments. Emily always saw the world in a special way. Everything was interesting, everything had a story in her head. They walked for a few blocks until they reached the main street. There were the bigger stores, with colorful windows and a bustle of people coming and going. Claire knew the prices were higher, but she wanted Emily to see the options. "Can we look in the windows?" "Of course, honey." They passed by the bookstore, where Emily pointed to some children's books. By the clothing store, where she commented on a pink dress in the window. By the pharmacy, by the shoe store. Emily commented on everything, always excited, until they reached the toy store. The window display was a spectacle of colors: dolls, cars, games, stuffed animals, puzzles. It was like a magical world for a 5-year-old child. The store's internal lights made everything sparkle. Emily stopped in front of the glass and was silent for a few seconds. Her blue eyes scanned every item, but they always returned to the same place, always to her. "Mommy," she whispered, almost breathless. Claire followed her daughter's gaze. There she was, the most beautiful doll in the window. Curly blonde hair like Emily's, bright blue eyes, a pink dress with gold details, tiny white shoes. She was perfect. She was the kind of doll every little girl dreamed of having. "I want that doll, Mommy." Emily's voice came out louder than expected. Some people on the street looked. An old lady smiled tenderly. Claire knelt beside her daughter, placing a hand on her small shoulder. She is very beautiful. She's the most beautiful of all. Can I have her? Claire looked at the price tag, $85. Her heart sank. It was more than double what she had. I'm sorry, honey, it's too expensive. But Mommy, Emily's eyes started to get teary. All my friends at school have one. I wanted to have one too. The girl's voice trembled. Claire felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. Seeing her daughter sad on her own birthday was the worst feeling in the world. Let's find another pretty one, okay? But I want this one. Emily pressed her little hand against the glass. I know, sweetie. I know you want it, but sometimes we can't have everything we want right away. Let's go inside the store and see what's in there. I'm sure there are other beautiful dolls. Emily nodded slowly, still looking at the doll in the window, as if saying goodbye to a dream. Across the street, a man stopped walking. Rowan had left the office early and decided to take a walk before returning to his empty apartment. He didn't usually pay attention to people on the street, always lost in thoughts about work or business, but something about that scene caught his attention. The blonde woman kneeling beside the little girl, the delicate way she spoke, how she tried to comfort her daughter. There was something there that touched Rowan in a way he couldn't explain. Maybe it was the patience in her voice, or the sadness in the child's blue eyes. He watched, hidden behind a lamppost. He didn't want to be intrusive, but he couldn't leave. It had been years since he had witnessed something so genuine. Claire and Emily entered the store. The atmosphere was even more impressive inside. Shelves filled to the ceiling, cheerful music playing softly, the smell of new toys in the air. The colors were vibrant, and there were children running from one side to the other with their parents. Wow, Emily murmured, her eyes wide. The clerk approached. She was a young woman, with brown hair tied back and a friendly smile. Can I help you? We're looking for a doll, Claire said. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday. How old are you? 5, Emily replied, showing the fingers of her right hand. That's great. 5 is a very special age. We have several beautiful options for girls your age. The clerk led them to a specific section at the back of the store. There were dolls of all types and sizes, some big, some small, some with long hair, others with short hair. A variety that made Emily curious, but not necessarily excited. Look at this one, Claire said, picking up a doll with brown hair and green eyes. So she's very beautiful. And look at this cute little outfit. Emily looked without much interest, shaking her head. She's pretty, but... And this one? Claire showed another, smaller, with black hair and brown eyes. This one has a very sweet smile. She's pretty too, Emily agreed, but without any excitement in her voice. Claire realized that her daughter was not excited. All the dolls were beautiful, but none of them sparked that special glint in her eyes. None were like the one in the window. How about this little blonde one? Claire picked up a medium-sized doll, simpler than the others. Look at her little blue eyes. They looked like yours. Emily held the doll and examined it carefully. She touched the blonde hair, looked into the blue plastic eyes. She's cute, she said, and for the first time since they entered the store, she smiled. And look at the price. Claire checked the tag. $28. It fits right into what Mommy can spend today. Can I have her? Of course, sweetie. She'll be your playmate. It wasn't the doll of her dreams, but Emily seemed satisfied enough. Claire breathed a sigh of relief. At least her daughter wouldn't leave the store completely frustrated. They went to the checkout. Claire took the crumpled bills from her wallet. $12 would be left for the rest of the month. It would be very tight, but they could manage with rice, beans, and some basic things. I'll wrap it up nicely for the birthday girl, said the clerk, grabbing a pink wrapping paper. While they waited, Emily hugged the new doll against her chest. What am I going to name her, Mommy? What name do you like? Bella. She looks like a Bella. Bella is a beautiful name for a beautiful doll. The clerk was finishing wrapping when an older woman approached. She was clearly the store manager, with more elegant clothes and a different name tag. Excuse me, she said, smiling warmly. I saw you looking at the doll in the window earlier. Claire tensed, holding Emily's hand. You were come on, but we chose this one. It's just that today, the manager continued, We have a very special promotion for birthday girls. Claire frowned, confused. What do you mean? The doll in the window is on a special discount today, exclusive for children who are having a birthday. It's my birthday, Emily said, excited, her eyes shining again. Then she's yours, dear. The manager signaled to the younger clerk, who seemed surprised for a moment, but then nodded as if understanding a silent instruction. I'll get the doll from the window right now. Claire was completely confused by the situation. But how much does it cost with the discount? Today's promotion makes it the same price as the one you chose. $28. Really, are you sure? Absolutely sure. Emily started jumping for joy, letting go of her mother's hand. Mommy, it's the doll I wanted, the most beautiful one. Claire was still processing what was happening, but she didn't want to question it too much. Maybe it was just luck. Sometimes these things happened, right? Last-minute promotions, happy coincidences. The clerk brought the doll from the window in a special box. It was even more beautiful up close. The details of the dress, the small earrings in her ears, even the light pink painted nails. Emily held it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Thank you, Mommy. It's the best birthday of my life. Happy birthday, dear, said the manager. I'm sure you two will be very happy together. Claire paid the $28, still in a bit of a shock from the sudden luck. The manager smiled and waved as they left the store. Goodbye, come back soon. They left the store with Emily beaming, hugging her dream doll. Claire was grateful, but still puzzled by what had happened. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? Across the street, Rowan watched everything with a small smile on his face. He had discreetly entered the store a few minutes before Claire and Emily reached the checkout. He had a quick word with the manager, explained the situation, paid the price difference for the doll, and asked for it to be presented as a special promotion. He didn't want to be recognized. He didn't want thanks. He didn't want them to know who he was. He just wanted to make that little girl smile on her birthday. He wanted that mother not to feel inadequate for not being able to buy what her daughter wanted. Now, seeing Emily leave the store happy, jumping on the sidewalk with the doll in her arms, Rowan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A warm feeling in his chest, as if a knot he didn't even know existed had been untied, as if he had done something really important. For the first time in years, he had used his money for something that really mattered. Not to impress clients, not to get some advantage in business, not to buy things he didn't even need, just to make a child happy. Claire and Emily walked down the street, chatting excitedly about the new doll. Emily showed every detail to her mother, making up stories about the doll's life, about the adventures they would have together. Rowan followed them from a distance, unnoticed, keeping a safe distance. He didn't know why. Maybe he wanted to make sure everything was okay. Maybe he wanted to keep that scene in his memory for a few more minutes. What am I going to call her now, Mommy? Emily asked. Weren't you going to call her Bella? But this one is more special than the other. She needs a more special name. Claire thought for a moment, looking at her daughter who was walking with a lighter, happier step. How about Hope? Hope. Emily tested the name on her tongue. Hope. I like it a lot. Claire smiled. Hope was a good name. Maybe it was exactly what they needed in their lives. Rowan stopped following them when they turned the corner towards the neighborhood where they lived. He stood there for a few minutes, leaning against a tree, thinking about what he had just done. He didn't know that woman and that little girl. He didn't know their names, where they lived exactly, what their full story was. But something about that scene in front of the store had moved him deeply. Maybe it was the gentle way the mother tried to comfort her daughter. Maybe it was the genuine sadness in the little girl's blue eyes when she heard she couldn't have the doll. Maybe it was the memory of his own childhood, when his mother also couldn't buy everything he wanted, when he saw other children with things he desired but knew were out of reach. Whatever the exact reason, Rowan knew he had done the right thing, and for the first time in a long, long time that was completely enough. He went home with a small smile on his face. A discreet smile, almost imperceptible to anyone looking from the outside, but as genuine as it hadn't been in years. The same kind of smile as a 5-year-old child hugging her dream doll, walking home on her birthday. Rowan arrived at the office on Monday morning with his mind still on the weekend. The image of the little blonde girl hugging the doll wouldn't leave his head. He had slept better on Saturday night than he had in weeks, as if something inside him had calmed down. The elevator rose silently to the 22nd floor. When the doors opened, Rowan stepped out with his Italian leather briefcase and his cell phone already ringing. It was Peterson, probably about the 9 o'clock meeting. Another day of contracts, negotiations, and decisions that moved millions. He crossed the polished marble lobby towards his office when something caught his attention. A woman was discreetly cleaning one of the corners near the client's waiting chairs, blonde hair tied in a simple ponytail, a light blue uniform. Rowan stopped in his tracks. It was her, the mother of the little girl from the toy store. She was there, working silently, almost invisible among the morning rush of hurried executives. Claire was cleaning the glass of a coffee table with careful movements, not drawing attention to herself. Next to her, sitting in one of the leather armchairs, was Emily. The new doll was nestled in the girl's lap, and she was talking softly to it as if it were a confidant. Emily was wearing a simple yellow dress and Velcro shoes. Rowan stood still for a few seconds, processing the coincidence. Or was it a coincidence? How many times had he passed by that exact spot without seeing? How many times had Claire been there, working while he rushed by, focused only on meetings and deadlines? "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell," said Linda, the receptionist, as he passed her desk. "Good morning, Linda." But Rowan couldn't move on. Something was pulling him back to where Claire and Emily were. It was as if an invisible force was preventing him from continuing with his automatic routine. He turned around, pretending he had forgotten something important at the reception. Claire was finishing cleaning the table when she noticed someone approaching. She looked up with her light blue eyes and saw a tall man in an impeccable dark suit, with well-groomed brown hair and eyes that looked familiar. There was something about him she recognized, but she couldn't place what it was. "Excuse me," Rowan said, and his voice came out softer than he usually used in the corporate environment. Claire straightened up immediately, a little tense. In the 8 months she had been working there, company executives rarely spoke to the cleaning staff. When they did, it was usually to complain about something. "Yes, sir." Rowan looked at Emily, who had stopped talking to the doll and was now watching him with the natural curiosity of children. "So, is she your daughter?" "Yes, sir. She came with me today." Claire's voice had a defensive tone, as if she were justifying something that could be considered inappropriate. "I hope it's not a problem. Usually she stays at school until later, but today she left early because the teacher got sick and—" No, Rowan interrupted gently, noticing the anxiety in her voice. "It's no problem at all. On the contrary." He knelt to be at Emily's level, who was holding the doll against her chest like a protective shield. "Hi, what's your name?" "Emily," the girl replied without shyness but cautiously. "And this is Hope." She showed the doll, and Rowan felt his heart give an irregular leap. It was the exact same doll from the window, the doll he had anonymously bought 2 days before. The curly blonde hair, the pink dress with gold details, even the small white shoes. Hope is a very beautiful name for a very beautiful doll. "My mommy chose it," Emily said, looking at Claire with adoration. "She said it's what we need most." Rowan looked at Claire, who was watching the interaction with a mixture of tension and curiosity. There was something touching in the way she protected her daughter. "She can come any time," Rowan said, standing up slowly. "She brightens up the place." Claire blinked twice, as if she hadn't understood correctly. "What?" "Your daughter. She can come whenever she needs to. It's good to have children around here. The atmosphere becomes more human." It was absolutely true. Rowan looked around the cold and impersonal lobby, all grey marble and glass, full of serious people rushing from one side to the other. Emily's presence brought something different. Colour, life, something he didn't know was missing. "Thank you, sir." "Rowan. You can call me Rowan." "Thank you, Rowan." "I'm Claire." For the first time in 8 months, Rowan really looked at her, not as the cleaning lady who worked in the lobby, but as Claire, a person with a name, a story, dreams. Her blue eyes had a depth that surprised him. There was tiredness there, but also a silent strength and a dignity that impressed him. How had he never paid attention before? Claire had always been there every weekday, doing her job with discretion and efficiency, and he passed by her as if she were part of the furniture. "How long have you been working here, Claire?" 8 months. 8 months. Rowan felt a deep embarrassment. 8 months passing by her almost every day, and he had never really seen her. He had never asked her name, never recognized her existence as a human being. "Rowan?" A voice called from the other side of the lobby. It was Peterson, his partner, carrying a pile of documents. "The 9 o'clock meeting has already started. The investors are waiting." "I'm coming," Rowan shouted back, but he didn't move. He looked at Claire and Emily one more time, as if he wanted to engrave that moment in his memory. "I have to go to a meeting, but it was a pleasure to truly meet you." "Likewise, Rowan." There was something different in the way Claire said his name, not Sir or Mr. Mitchell, just Rowan, as if he were a normal person. As he walked hurriedly to the meeting room, Rowan couldn't concentrate on what Peterson was saying about the Japanese investors. His mind was on Claire and Emily in the lobby, on how genuinely surprised Claire had been when he said Emily could come any time. The meeting dragged on all morning. Discussions about technology investments, international market analysis, quarterly projections that seemed like abstract numbers. Rowan participated automatically, giving appropriate answers, but a significant part of his attention was elsewhere. When he finally left for lunch 2 hours later, the first thing he did was look for them. Claire was now cleaning the huge windows on the ground floor, using a small ladder to reach the higher parts. Emily was sitting in a nearby chair, with a coloring book open on her lap and pencils scattered around. Rowan stopped at the building's cafeteria and bought a turkey sandwich, apple juice, some chocolate chip cookies, and a banana. Simple food, suitable for a child. He went back to where they were. "Emily," he called softly, not wanting to startle her. The girl looked up from her coloring book, where she was coloring what looked like a castle. "Hi, Rowan." It was fascinating how quickly children adapted to people. Emily already treated him like a long-time acquaintance, without the social barriers that adults created. "Have you had lunch yet?" "Not yet. Mommy said we'll eat when she finishes cleaning all the windows." Rowan looked at Claire, who had come down from the ladder and was watching the conversation attentively, the cleaning cloth still in her hand. "I brought you a snack," he said to Emily, showing the bag from the cafeteria. "Sana, if your mom lets you, of course." Claire hesitated for a long moment. Rowan could see the conflict in her eyes, pride versus need, independence versus her daughter's hunger. "You didn't have to bother." "I know I didn't have to, but I wanted to." There was something in the absolute simplicity of the answer that touched Claire deeply. It wasn't disguised pity. It didn't seem like condescending charity. It was just basic human kindness. "You can accept it, honey." Emily clapped her hands with joy and made room in the wide chair for Rowan to sit next to her. "Look what I'm coloring." It was a complex drawing of a family, father, mother, and daughter holding hands in front of a house with a flower garden and a large tree. "It's getting very beautiful. You have a lot of talent. Do you want to color with me? There's still a lot of space." Rowan looked around discreetly. He, an executive in a $1,000 suit, about to sit on the floor of his own company's lobby to color with a 5-year-old child. If someone from the board of directors saw him, of course, it would be an honor. Emily took a light blue pencil from the box and handed it to him with ceremony. "You can color the sky, but be careful not to go outside the lines." Rowan took the pencil, which seemed tiny between his fingers, accustomed to signing contracts. He began to color carefully, trying to maintain uniform movements. It had been literally decades since he had done something like this. "Do you work here every day?" Emily asked, completely focused on painting the mother figure's dress. "I do, almost every day." "Are you important?" Rowan laughed softly, a genuine laugh. "Why do you ask?" "Because you wear very important clothes, and everyone talks quietly and walks fast when you pass by." It was a surprisingly perceptive observation for a child. Rowan had never thought about the effect his presence had on people. "And you? Do you like coming here with your mom?" "I like it a lot. It's quiet and has these comfy couches." "At school, sometimes there's a lot of noise and chaos. Do you always come with your mom after school?" "Yes. I leave school and come straight here." I wait for her to finish work. Sometimes it takes a while, but I don't mind. Rowan stopped coloring for a second. Every day, Emily came to the office after school and waited patiently. A 5-year-old child, sitting quietly for hours while her mother worked to support them both. Don't you get bored waiting? Not much. I draw, play with Hope. Sometimes I read the little books Mommy buys, and now I can color with you. Is Hope enjoying her new home? Emily hugged the doll affectionately. She loves it. She said she's never had a room of her own before, and that she really likes the new bed we made out of a box. Rowan smiled, touched by the child's fertile imagination and Claire's creativity in making a little seem like a lot. Emily, said Claire, approaching with the cleaning spray bottle. Don't bother Rowan. He must have important things to do. He's not bothering me at all, Rowan replied quickly. In fact, I'm learning important things here. Learning what? She's teaching me to color without going outside the lines. And, Emily interrupted, excited with a sudden idea. I can also teach you how to fold a napkin into a flower shape. What do you mean? Emily took one of the napkins from the snack and began to fold it with her skillful and concentrated little fingers. Look, the teacher taught us last week. Hair turns into a real flower. Rowan watched, absolutely fascinated, as she transformed the ordinary napkin into something that really looked like a delicate flower. Incredible! How do you do that? It's easy. Want to try? Rowan took another napkin from the package. Emily guided his large hands with infinite patience, showing exactly where to fold, how to press, where to make the petals appear. No, that's not right. Look here. She carefully undid his work and demonstrated again, step by step, with the patience of an experienced teacher. Now I get the trick. On the third try, Rowan managed to make a flower that minimally resembled Emily's demonstration. It's beautiful, she said, clapping with genuine enthusiasm. Rowan felt proud in a way he hadn't experienced in years, proud to have made a simple napkin flower, proud to have earned a child's smile and approval. Claire watched the whole interaction from a distance, pretending to be completely busy with cleaning the windows. There was something almost surreal in the scene unfolding. A powerful and important executive sitting on the marble floor, patiently learning to fold napkins with her 5-year-old daughter. But it wasn't just the incongruity of the situation that impressed her. It was the quality of attention Rowan gave to Emily. He wasn't trying to impress anyone or score points. He wasn't being condescending or fake. He was genuinely present, truly interested in what Emily had to teach. Do you have children, Rowan? Emily asked, neatly putting the colored pencils back in their box. No, I don't. Why not? It was a question too direct for a child to ask, but Rowan was not offended, nor did he seem uncomfortable. I never found the right person to start a family with. Oh, I see. Emily reflected for a moment, chewing on a cookie. My dad didn't want to have kids. Rowan glanced quickly at Claire, who had completely stopped pretending to clean and was now watching the conversation with full attention. Really? Yes. Mommy explained that he left because he wasn't ready to be a real dad. But it's okay. The natural simplicity with which Emily spoke about something so complex and painful touched Rowan deeply. There was no apparent resentment in her voice, only a maturity too great for her 5 years. But Mommy and I get by just fine on our own. We're a team. I can see that clearly. And Rowan really did see. There was a special bond between Claire and Emily that was beautiful to witness. A mutual care, a solid partnership that worked despite all the obvious difficulties. Rowan, Emily said, carefully putting the doll in her small bag. You're very nice. You're very nice too, Emily. So can we be real friends? The question came out so naturally that Rowan was momentarily speechless. When was the last time someone had directly asked if they could be his friend? When was the last time he had had a genuine friend without ulterior motives? I would very much like to be your friend, Claire approached, discreetly checking the watch on her wrist. Emily, I need to finish my work before 5. Let Rowan get back to his important things. Actually, said Rowan, standing up and straightening his crumpled suit, this was by far the most important thing I've done all day. And he truly believed it with every fiber of his being. Can I come back tomorrow to see how the rest of the drawing turned out? You can, Emily replied, jumping with excitement. See you tomorrow then. Rowan walked back to the elevator with a completely strange and new feeling in his chest. Lightness. That was exactly it. For the first time in many years, he felt genuinely light. In the silent elevator, he looked at the small napkin flower he was still holding carefully. A tiny work of art, made by 5-year-old hands and taught with infinite patience. Claire had always been there, every weekday for the last 8 months, working silently while he rushed past, completely focused on things that now seemed much less important. But today he had really seen, today he had paid real attention. And he discovered that sometimes the most valuable things in life are right in front of us, patiently waiting for us to stop running and look. It was Thursday of the following week, when Rowan finally gathered the courage. He had spent 4 days watching Claire work, chatting casually with Emily, feeling the weight of the unspoken truth grow in his chest. He could no longer pretend that their meeting at the store had been a coincidence. Claire was cleaning the tables in the corporate cafe when Rowan approached. Emily was at school, so it was the perfect time for a serious conversation. He had mentally rehearsed several times how he would begin, but now seeing Claire there, all the planned words seemed inadequate. "No, Claire," he said, his voice lower than usual. She looked up, always a little cautious when he appeared without Emily around. "Hi, Rowan. Emily will only be here in 2 hours." "I know. Actually, I wanted to talk to you, alone." Claire stopped cleaning, holding the damp cloth in her hands. There was something in his tone that put her on alert. "So I talk about what?" Rowan looked around. The cafe was empty, but he still felt exposed there in the middle of the lobby. "Can we sit for a minute?" Claire hesitated. Talking to Rowan in front of Emily was one thing. Sitting down for a private conversation was something else entirely. But something in his expression made her nod. They sat at one of the small cafe tables. Claire kept her hands busy with the cleaning cloth, as if she needed something to hold on to. "Claire," Rowan began, looking directly into her blue eyes, "I need to tell you something about Emily's doll." Claire's heart leaped. She had always known that promotion had been too strange to be true, but she had preferred not to question it, not to look a gift horse in the mouth. "What about the doll?" Rowan took a deep breath. It was now or never. "I was the one who bought the doll." Claire remained completely still for a few seconds, processing the words. "What do you mean?" "On Saturday, when you were in front of the toy store," Rowan continued, the words now tumbling out in a torrent since he had begun, "I saw you at the window. I saw how Emily looked at that doll. I saw you trying to console her." Claire felt her face flush. She remembered that moment. The frustration of not being able to give her daughter what she really wanted. The feeling of inadequacy that had haunted her for the rest of the day. "You saw us. I was across the street, and something touched me." Rowan paused, searching for the right words. "I couldn't get it out of my head. The way you spoke to her, how you tried to make her feel better. So I went into the store before you got to the checkout and asked the manager to make it look like a promotion." Claire was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice came out weaker than usual. "Why?" "Because—" Rowan hesitated. How could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? "Because your daughter deserved to have that doll. Because you deserved to see her happy. And because, for some reason, I needed to do that. You didn't know us." "That's true. I didn't. So why care?" Rowan looked at his own hands. It was a fair question, but he didn't have a simple answer. "My mother raised me alone too," he said finally. "I remember similar moments, her trying to work miracles with very little. And I remember what it was like to want something that was out of reach." Claire felt something stir in her chest. It wasn't pity in his eyes. It was something different, something she wasn't used to seeing. "Did you do it out of pity?" "No," Rowan answered immediately, looking into her eyes again. "I did it because I saw an incredible mother trying to give her daughter the world. I did it because I saw a special child who lights up any place she goes. I did it because—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Because you two reminded me of what really matters." Claire studied his face, looking for signs of falsehood or condescension. But what she saw was raw honesty. There was something in Rowan's clear eyes that she rarely saw in people. Genuine respect. "Your daughter is very intelligent," Rowan continued. "The way she sees the world, how she treats people. You've done an amazing job raising her." "It was hard," Claire admitted, almost without thinking. "I'm sure it was. But look at the result." They were silent for a few minutes. Claire processed the revelation, rearranging her understanding of the past few days. Rowan had bought the doll. Rowan had been watching even before they met. "You must think I'm a terrible mother," she said finally, "not being able to buy a simple doll for my daughter." "Claire," Rowan's voice became firmer, "I think you're one of the most impressive people I've ever met." She looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You work here every day. You raise a daughter alone. You make her feel loved and safe despite all the difficulties, and you still manage to maintain your dignity, your strength. That's no small thing." Claire felt her eyes burn. It had been a long time since someone had recognized her effort, who saw beyond the circumstances and saw what she was trying to do. "I didn't want you to find out," Rowan continued. "I didn't want you to feel, I don't know, embarrassed or indebted to me. And now? Now I wanted you to know that it wasn't pity. It wasn't charity. It was admiration." Claire looked at him for a long moment. She had spent so many years being judged, being seen as a poor thing, as someone who couldn't make it in life. It was strange, and at the same time comforting to be seen differently. "Thank you," she said, and the word was loaded with meaning. "For what?" "For telling me the truth. And for seeing us in a different way." Rowan smiled, and it was a different smile from the ones Claire was used to seeing in the corporate environment. It was warm, genuine. "It's hard not to see you in a different way. You've changed my days here." "We have? You and Emily. This place was just work for me. Now it has color, laughter, life." Claire felt something strange in her chest. She couldn't remember the last time someone had said that she and Emily brought something positive to someone else's life. It was usually the opposite. They were seen as a burden, as a complication. "Emily likes you a lot," she said, "and I like her a lot." "And you." The words came out naturally, but created a moment of silence between them. Claire didn't know how to interpret that. "Rowan." "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just wanted you to know the truth, and to know that if you ever need anything, you can count on me." Claire nodded, still processing everything. Something different was happening there, something she wasn't sure she was ready to understand. "Can I ask you a question?" she said. "Of course." "Why tell me now?" Rowan thought for a moment. "Because I couldn't pretend anymore, and because you deserve honesty." They were interrupted by voices in the lobby, other employees arriving from lunch. The moment of intimacy naturally dissolved. "I need to get back to work," Claire said, standing up. "Of course." She took a few steps, then turned around. "Rowan." "Yes." "Thank you, really. Not just for the doll, for everything." He nodded, and Claire went on with her work. But something had changed. The truth was between them now, and with it, a new understanding. Rowan hadn't acted out of pity, he had acted out of respect, and Claire wasn't sure what to do with that information, but she knew it changed everything. Summer arrived with a vengeance that year. It was a Friday at the end of June, and the thermometer was reading almost 90 degrees. The building's air conditioning was working at full blast, but the heat was still unbearable. Rowan had taken off his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, which was already showing sweat stains. When he went down to the lobby in the middle of the afternoon, he found Emily sitting in her usual armchair, but this time she was visibly uncomfortable with the heat. Her blonde curls were stuck to her sweaty forehead, and she was fanning her face with a coloring book. "It's very hot today," Emily said when Rowan approached, her yellow dress sticking to her back. "It's unbearable. Where's your mum?" "Cleaning the bathrooms on the 10th floor. She said it will take longer today because of the heat." Rowan looked at the little girl trying to cool herself with the improvised fan. Her blue eyes were tired from the heat. An idea came to his mind. "Emily, how about some ice cream?" The little girl's blue eyes lit up immediately. "Really, can I?" "Of course you can. But let's ask your mum first, okay?" They went up to the 10th floor. They found Claire coming out of one of the bathrooms, her face red with heat and sweat, hair stuck to her forehead. She was wiping her forehead with the back of her hand when she saw them approaching. "Hi, you two. What are you doing up here?" "Mommy," Emily said, excited. "Rowan wants to take us for ice cream." Claire hesitated, looking at Rowan with that cautious expression he already knew. "It's very hot," he explained. "I thought it would be nice for you to cool off a bit." "You don't have to bother. I know I don't have to. But it's unbearable in here. I can imagine how it must be to work in this heat." Claire looked at her daughter, who was watching her with hope. "Please, Mommy, it's really hot." Claire smiled, and for the first time, Rowan saw a completely relaxed expression on her face. "Okay then, but only if you promise to behave." "I promise." They went down to the street. The heat outside was even worse, but Rowan knew an ice cream parlor 2 blocks away that had excellent air conditioning. "Let's go to that one," he said, pointing to a small shop with a colorful sign. The ice cream parlor was cozy, with round tables and colorful chairs. The air conditioning worked perfectly, bringing immediate relief. Emily ran to the freezer counter to see the flavors. "Wow, so many flavors," she exclaimed. "You can choose whatever you want," Rowan said. Emily spent several minutes deciding between chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. In the end, she chose a double scoop of chocolate and strawberry in a cone. Claire ordered just 1 scoop of lemon. "And you?" asked Claire. "I'll have chocolate, classic." They sat at a table near the window. Emily attacked the ice cream with enthusiasm, smearing her face. Claire ate slowly, clearly savoring every spoonful. "It's been a while since I had ice cream," she commented. "Why?" asked Rowan. "It's not exactly a priority in the budget." Rowan felt a pang in his chest. Simple things like ice cream, which were automatic for him, were a luxury for Claire. "I always thought rich people didn't care about these little things," said Claire, watching Emily. "But you're different." "How so?" "You see us. You really see us. Most people look through us as if we were invisible." Rowan didn't know what to say. There was a painful truth in those words. "It's strange," Claire continued, "to be treated like a normal person, without pity, without judgment. You are a normal person, Claire, an incredible person." She looked at him for a moment, as if she were trying to understand something. "Cher Rowan," Emily said, interrupting the moment, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you live alone?" "I do." "Don't you get sad?" Rowan laughed. "Sometimes. But meeting you two has made a difference in my life." Claire felt something warm spread through her chest. She couldn't remember the last time someone had said that she made a positive difference. "Do you want to have dinner with us tonight?" Emily asked suddenly. "Emily!" Claire scolded, embarrassed. "What? He's our friend." Rowan looked at Claire, waiting. "You don't have to accept," she said, awkwardly. "It's nothing special, just simple food." "I'd love to," Rowan interrupted. "If it's not an inconvenience." "It won't be an inconvenience at all," Emily said, clapping her hands. "Mommy makes the best food." Claire smiled, still shy but pleased. "Our house is very simple. The apartment is small. The food is basic." "Claire," Rowan said softly, "I'm sure it will be perfect." 2 hours later, Rowan was following Claire and Emily down a simple but well-kept residential street. The buildings were old but had charm, with small gardens in front. It was a working-class neighborhood where people knew each other. "That's ours," Claire said, pointing to a 3-story building. They went up 2 flights of stairs. Claire opened the door to a small but impeccably organized apartment. The living room had a beige sofa, a small table, an old television, and shelves with children's books. It was simple, but there was care in every detail. "Sorry for any mess," Claire said, even though there was no mess. "It's beautiful here," Rowan said, and it was true. There were pictures of Emily at various moments on the wall, children's drawings taped to the refrigerator, small plants in the window. It was a real home made with love. "Sit on the couch," said Claire. "I'll make dinner." "Can I help?" "No need." "Relax." Rowan sat down while Emily ran to the bedroom to get drawings and her doll and Hope. The kitchen was open to the living room, so he could see Claire working. She moved with efficiency, cutting vegetables, seasoning meat, turning on the stove. "Emily told me you know how to play checkers," Claire said as she cooked. "I know a little." "Why?" "She's been wanting someone to play with. I always lose on purpose, but she's already figured it out." Rowan laughed. "I promise to play a fair game." "She'll like that." The smell of food began to spread through the apartment. It was a homemade aroma of natural spices and genuine care. 40 minutes later, they were sitting at the kitchen table. Claire had made grilled chicken with rice and beans, a simple salad and orange juice. It was homemade food made with care. "This is delicious," Rowan said after the first bite. "Really? Really? It's been a long time since I've had a meal made with so much care." Claire smiled, clearly pleased with the compliment. The conversation flowed naturally during dinner. Emily told stories from school. Claire talked about work. Rowan shared lighter experiences from the office. There was no tension, just three people talking like friends. "Rowan," Emily said after eating, "can you stay and watch a movie with me?" "What movie?" "The Little Mermaid. Mommy said we can watch it after dinner." Rowan looked at Claire, who shrugged. "Say if you want to stay cool." "Of course I do." After helping with the dishes, they settled on the couch. Emily squeezed in between Rowan and Claire with hope in her lap. Rowan had taken off his shoes and rolled up the sleeves of his shirt. He looked completely at ease. During the movie, Claire watched Rowan discreetly. He laughed at the jokes along with Emily, made comments about the characters, seemed genuinely involved. There was nothing forced about his presence there. "Do you like this part?" Emily asked when Ariel started to sing. "I do. She has a dream and she fights for it, just like Mommy," Emily said naturally. "What do you mean?" asked Rowan. "Mommy always dreamed of studying. She tells me sometimes." Claire was embarrassed. "Emily, it's true. You said you wanted to have a profession of your own." Rowan looked at Claire with interest. "What kind of study?" "It's not important," Claire said, wanting to change the subject. "It's important to me," Rowan said. Claire sighed. "I always wanted to do nursing. I like taking care of people. But with Emily, work, bills, there was never enough time or money." "It's never too late," Rowan said. "It is for me. I'm 28. I have a daughter, responsibilities." 28 is young, Claire. You have your whole life ahead of you." She looked at him, seeing something in his eyes that she couldn't quite identify, but that made her feel hopeful. The movie ended with Emily practically asleep, leaning against Rowan. Claire carried her to the bedroom, gave her a bath and put on her pajamas. When she returned to the living room, Rowan was arranging the sofa cushions. "You didn't have to tidy up," she said. "Habit." They were silent for a moment. "Thank you for today," said Claire. The ice cream, accepting the dinner invitation, Emily was very happy. "And you?" Claire looked at him. "I was happy too." It was a simple admission, but loaded with meaning. "It was a perfect day," said Rowan. "It's been a long time since I've felt so at home." "At home?" "Yes. Here, with you. It's strange, but I feel like I'm part of the family." Claire felt her heart race. There was something in the way he said that. "Rowan, I'm sorry if that was inappropriate. I didn't mean to—" "It wasn't inappropriate," she interrupted. "It's just that I feel that too. Like you're a part of it." They looked at each other for a moment that seemed to last longer than it should have. "I have to go," Rowan said finally. "Tomorrow is Saturday, but I have a few things to take care of." "Of course." He picked up his jacket and shoes. "Claire?" "Yes?" "Thank you for letting me be a part of it, even if just for one night." She walked him to the door. "You can come back whenever you want." When Rowan went down the stairs, Claire stood at the door for a few minutes. Something had changed that night. The barriers she had carefully built around her heart had cracked. For the first time in a long time, she had looked at someone without defenses, without fear. And Rowan hadn't seemed like a visitor in her home. He had seemed like a part of it. The following weeks established a new rhythm in the office. Rowan began to appear in the lobby with a frequency that even Linda, the receptionist, noticed. It was no longer just casual encounters or sporadic conversations. It had become something intentional, part of his daily routine. Every morning around 9:30, Rowan would come down with 2 cups of coffee from the special machine on the executive floor. One for him, the other he would discreetly leave on the table next to where Claire worked. He never made a fuss, never drew attention to the gesture. He simply left it there as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Good morning, Claire," he would say, placing the steaming cup within her reach. "Good morning, Rowan. Thanks for the coffee." It was always the same exchange, simple and comforting. Claire had stopped protesting after the 3rd time. There was something in the naturalness of the gesture that completely disarmed her. Peterson, his partner, even commented in a meeting, "You've been different lately, Rowan, less tense." "Have I?" "Yes. Even your posture has changed. You seem more relaxed." Rowan didn't answer, but he knew Peterson was right. There was something about the morning conversations with Claire that calmed him in a way he had never experienced. When Emily was around, after school, Rowan invariably appeared, not in an obvious or planned way, but as if he were just passing through the lobby and was lucky enough to run into them. "How was school today?" he would ask, bending down to be at Emily's level. "Good. We learned about butterflies." "Butterflies? How interesting. What kind?" And so began conversations that would last for 20, 30 minutes. Rowan asked subtle but genuine questions. He wanted to know about Emily's friends, about her favorite subjects, about the books she was reading. Questions that most adults asked only to be polite, but that Rowan asked because he really cared about the answers. "The teacher said that butterflies don't live very long," Emily said on a Tuesday. "That's true, but they are important even if they live for a short time." "Why?" "Because they help flowers exist. Without them, we wouldn't have colorful gardens." Emily thought about it for a moment. "So even though they're small, they make a difference." "Exactly. Size doesn't define importance." Claire, who was listening while organizing the cleaning supplies, smiled discreetly. Rowan always found a way to make Emily feel special, important. On Thursdays, when Emily had art class at school and always arrived excited about some project, Rowan showed genuine interest in every detail. "I made a drawing of our family," Emily said one of these afternoons, showing a paper with 3 colorful figures. "Our family?" Rowan asked, curious. "Yes. Me, Mommy, and you." Claire stopped cleaning for a second, watching from a distance. Rowan held the drawing carefully, as if it were a precious work of art. "It's beautiful. Can I keep it?" "You can. I'll make another one for Mommy." Rowan carefully folded the drawing and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. Claire saw the gesture and felt something warm spread through her chest. As the days passed, other employees began to notice the change. Rowan, who had always been exclusively focused on work, now took regular breaks. He smiled more often during the day. Even the way he greeted people had changed, becoming warmer. One Friday afternoon, when the office was emptier, Rowan found Claire cleaning the ground floor windows. Emily was sitting in a nearby chair, doing her homework. "Need a hand?" Rowan offered. "No thanks." But he stayed there anyway, watching Claire work. There was a graceful efficiency in her movements. She didn't just clean, she cared for the environment as if it were her own home. "Claire," Rowan said after a few minutes. "Yes? Can I ask you a question?" She stopped cleaning, a little tense. "You can." "Have you seriously thought about what you said about studying nursing?" Claire sighed. "I think about it all the time. But thinking and being able to do it are different things." "And if there was a way?" "What kind of way?" Rowan hesitated. He didn't want to seem condescending. "There are night programs, scholarships, things that could work with your routine." "Rowan, I'm not trying to solve your life," he said quickly. "I just think you deserve to have your dreams, Claire." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why do you care so much?" It was a direct question, and Rowan didn't have a simple answer. Because you two have become important to me. Very important." Claire felt her heart race. Her heart. There was something in the way he said, "important," that made her understand it wasn't just friendship. "Rowan," Emily said, looking up from her homework, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course." Emily looked around to make sure no one else was listening, then whispered loud enough for Claire to hear, "Mommy has been happier since you showed up." Rowan immediately looked at Claire, who had completely stopped cleaning. Her blue eyes met his, and this time she didn't look away. She held his gaze for a second longer than usual, as if she were trying to communicate something she couldn't say in words. "Emily," Claire began, clearly embarrassed. "But it's true, Mommy. You smile more. You sing in the shower again. You're less worried." Rowan continued to look at Claire, seeing confirmation in her eyes of what Emily had said. "I'm happier too," he said softly. It was a simple admission, but loaded with meaning. "Rowan," said Emily, "are you going to have dinner with us again?" "Mommy bought ingredients to make lasagna." "She did." Rowan looked at Claire, surprised. Claire blushed. "I thought maybe if you wanted to." "I'd love to." "Great," Emily said, clapping her hands. "Can it be today?" Rowan looked at Claire, who nodded shyly. "Today is perfect." Later that night, as they ate homemade lasagna at the small kitchen table in Claire's apartment, Rowan realized how natural it had become. The conversations flowed easily. Emily told stories from school. Claire laughed at his jokes. It was as if he had always been there. "Rowan," Emily said as they ate dessert, "do you like living alone?" "I used to," he answered honestly, "but now I prefer to be here with you." Claire looked at him, and again there was that moment of silent connection. "You can come over any time," Emily said. "Mommy likes it when you come, I can tell." "Emily," Claire protested, but she was smiling. "It's true. You're different when he's here. More like before." "Like before?" asked Rowan. "Before you were sad, when I was a little girl and you used to sing me to sleep." Claire was moved. She didn't know that Emily remembered those times when she still had hopes, before life became just about survival. "I can sing you to sleep tonight," Rowan offered. "If your mum lets me." Emily looked at Claire with hope. "Can he?" Claire nodded, touched by the kindness of the gesture. After Emily fell asleep, lulled by a lullaby that Rowan remembered from his own childhood, he and Claire stayed in the living room talking softly. "Thank you," Claire said, "for everything. For the morning coffee, for the conversations with Emily, for being a part of it. Thank you for letting me be a part of it." They looked at each other, and Claire realized that something had definitely changed. Rowan was no longer a visitor. He was no longer the important executive who showed up occasionally. He had become part of their routine, part of their lives. And for the first time in a long time, Claire let hope become part of her routine again. It was a sunny Sunday morning when Rowan arrived at Claire's apartment with fresh coffee and donuts. It had become a weekend routine. He would show up with some simple excuse, and they would always welcome him as if he were part of the family. Emily was in the living room playing with puzzles, while Claire organized some clothes on the couch. It was a quiet domestic scene, the kind of moment Rowan had never experienced in his own empty house. "Good morning, everyone," he said, entering with the smile that had become automatic in their presence. "Rowan!" Emily ran to hug him, leaving the puzzle pieces scattered. "Did you bring donuts?" "I did. The chocolate ones you like, and some with colorful frosting." Claire smiled, coming to greet him. "You don't always have to bring things, Rowan." "I know, but I like to. It's part of my Sunday now." They settled at the small kitchen table. The apartment was filled with morning light, and there was an aroma of fresh coffee that Claire had prepared. Emily ate her donut while talking about a funny dream she'd had the night before. "In my dream, I was flying like a bird," she said, gesturing excitedly. "And I had a dad who flew with me." The comment created a momentary silence at the table. Claire tensed, not knowing how to react to these occasional mentions Emily made about having a father. Rowan looked at Emily, then at Claire, seeing her discomfort. "Emily," he said softly, "can you tell me about your dad?" Claire opened her mouth to interrupt, but Rowan made a gentle gesture for her to let Emily speak. There was a genuine curiosity in his voice, without judgment or embarrassment. "I didn't know him," Emily said with the natural simplicity of children. "Mommy said he left before I was born." "Emily," Claire began, visibly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "It's true, isn't it, Mommy? You told me he didn't want to stay." Claire sighed, looking at Rowan with an expression that mixed vulnerability and resignation. "It's true." "Can you tell me what happened?" asked Rowan, his voice filled with genuine curiosity, free of any judgment. Claire hesitated for a moment, nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. It was a story she rarely told, and never to men. "He left when he found out I was pregnant." The words came out simple, direct, but loaded with an old pain that still echoed after all these years. He said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was too young, that he had big plans for his life, and that I should resolve the situation. Rowan felt a silent anger rise in his chest, but he kept his expression calm and attentive. "How old were you?" 22. I was working in a clothing store at the mall, living in a tiny apartment that I shared with a roommate. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought we would stay together, build a family." Claire paused for a moment, looking at Emily, who was now distractedly playing with the donut crumbs, making small drawings on the table. But he disappeared, literally. He moved to another city, blocked my phone, deleted all his social media, as if me and the baby were just an inconvenient problem to be avoided. Claire took a sip of coffee, as if she needed courage to continue. "His parents called me once. They offered me money to not cause trouble." As if Emily were trouble. Rowan was silent for a few seconds, processing the story. There was a painful familiarity in those words, echoes of his own childhood. "Mine abandoned us too," he said, almost whispering. Claire looked up, completely surprised. Rowan had never mentioned his family before. "What?" "My father. When I was 7. One day, he just didn't come home from work." It was the first time Rowan had shared this part of his life with anyone other than therapists and medical records. He felt an urgent need for Claire to know that she was not alone in this experience. He left a note in the kitchen, saying he couldn't carry the weight of responsibility anymore, that he needed to be free to live his own life. Rowan looked at Emily, who was now paying attention to the conversation with the natural curiosity of children. "My mother was left alone with me. She worked 2 jobs during the day, studied at night to try to get a better position, a better life for both of us." Rowan's voice carried a mixture of old pain and deep admiration. "She gave everything she had to raise me. She gave up her own dreams, her own youth, her own relationships. I am what I am today entirely because of her." Claire felt her eyes begin to sting. There was a shared pain in those words, an understanding she had never found in anyone before. "And I see that in you," Rowan continued, looking directly at Claire with an intensity that made her feel seen in a completely new way. The same silent strength, the same absolute dedication, the same way of putting your child first, always, even when it means putting yourself last. Claire had to blink several times to hold back the tears that insisted on forming. "That's why you understand us," she said, finally understanding the special connection between them. "That's why I see what others can't see. I see a woman who works miracles every day, who turns a little into a lot, who creates happiness and stability even when life is difficult and uncertain." "Mommy," Emily said, climbing into Claire's lap with the keen perception of children, "why are you getting sad?" "I'm not sad, sweetie. I'm touched." "Is touched good or bad?" "It's very good," Claire said, hugging her daughter tightly. "It's when someone says something that touches our heart in a beautiful way." Rowan watched the mother and daughter embrace and felt an emotion he couldn't properly name. It was gratitude, admiration, and something deeper that he was just beginning to recognize in himself. "Want to play outside?" Emily asked, always full of energy. "Oh, there's a small playground nearby." "Of course," Rowan said, grateful for the change of energy. They went down to the small neighborhood park. It was simple, with some old but well-maintained playground equipment by the local community. Emily ran directly to the swings, asking Rowan to push her. Claire sat on a nearby bench, watching the interaction between them. There was something completely natural in the way Rowan played with Emily. Not forced, not performative, not trying to impress, just present and genuinely interested. "Higher!" Emily shouted, laughing with that pure joy of children. "Be careful not to fly straight to the moon," Rowan joked. "If I fly to the moon, will you come and get me?" "Always," Rowan replied without hesitation. The answer came out so naturally and with such conviction that it made Claire feel a tightness in her chest. Emily had found in Rowan something she didn't even know she was looking for. A male figure who didn't run away, who didn't disappear, who stayed. After a while, Emily went to play on the slide with other children who had arrived at the park. Rowan sat next to Claire on the bench, both of them watching the games. "Thank you," she said after a few minutes. "For what?" "For sharing your story with me. For making me understand that I'm not alone in all this." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Emily interact with the other children. It was one of those moments when words were not necessary, where the simple shared presence said everything. "Rowan Sieht," Claire said after a few minutes, almost without thinking, the words coming out as if they had a life of their own. "I've always wanted to study." He turned to look at her, giving her his full attention as he always did when she spoke. "To have a real profession, something of my own, not just being Emily's mom or the building's janitor. Being Claire, the nurse, or Claire, the teacher, or Claire, anything that was really mine." Rowan listened without interrupting, understanding instinctively that she needed to talk, needed to get these thoughts out. "When I was a child, I used to play doctor all the time. I took care of my dolls as if they were real patients. I made elaborate bandages on my stuffed animals. I dreamed of working in a big hospital, helping people, making a difference in their lives." She stopped, looking at her own hands that worked so hard every day. But life didn't leave room for dreams. First it was working early to help at home because my father had lost his job. Then it was dating. Then the unexpected pregnancy. And when Emily was born, any dream I had became a luxury I simply couldn't afford. Claire sighed deeply, as if she were releasing years of pent-up frustration. "Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I had tried. If I had fought harder for my dreams, if I had been braver." Rowan was silent for a moment, carefully choosing the words that could make a difference. "You are a strong woman, Claire," he said finally, with a conviction that surprised her. "Stronger than you think." She looked at him, seeing something in his eyes that she couldn't quite decipher. "If you want to try again, if you want to fight for your dreams now, I want to support you in that. Rowan, I'm not talking about solving everything for you," he clarified quickly. "I'm talking about being by your side while you solve it, about believing in you when you can't believe in yourself." Claire felt her heart race. There was something in his voice, in the absolute certainty with which he spoke, that made her believe that maybe, just maybe, it was still possible. "Why would you do that for me?" "Because you deserve it. Because Emily deserves to see her mother fulfilling her dreams and being happy. And because—" Rowan hesitated for a moment, then continued with complete honesty. "Because you and Emily have shown me what a real family is, and families support each other unconditionally." Claire looked deeply into his eyes, seeing a sincerity that completely disarmed her. For the first time in a long, long time, someone not only believed in her, but was genuinely willing to prove that belief with concrete actions. "Dad, you really think I could do it?" "I'm absolutely sure. Even with all the difficulties, with Emily, with a full-time job, with the lack of money." "Especially because of the difficulties," Rowan said with conviction. "They made you strong, they prepared you for any challenge." Claire felt tears begin to stream down her face. Not tears of sadness or frustration, but of deep relief, of hope reborn. "Mummy!" Emily ran up to them, interrupting the moment. "Why are you crying?" "They're happy tears, Kung sweetie." "What do you mean, happy tears?" "Sometimes we cry when we're very, very happy." "Are you really happy?" Claire looked at Rowan, then at her daughter, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. "I am very happy." Emily climbed onto the bench between them, satisfied with the answer. "Then I'm happy too." They stayed there, the three of them sitting on the bench in the small park, watching other families play around them. But for the first time in a long time, Claire didn't feel like an observer of a life she couldn't have. She felt like part of a real family. When it started to get dark and they returned to the apartment, Claire was different. There was a lightness in her step, a hope in her eyes that Rowan hadn't seen before, as if a long-closed door had opened again. "Rowan," she said, as they were saying goodbye at the door. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for letting me believe." After he left, Claire spent a long time thinking about the conversation. For the first time in years, her dreams didn't seem impossible or childish, not because someone was going to make them come true for her, but because someone believed that she was capable of making them come true herself. And sometimes that's exactly what we need to start. Someone who believes in us until we learn to believe in ourselves again. 3 weeks had passed since that conversation in the park, and the routine had changed in a subtle but profound way. Rowan was no longer an occasional visitor. He had become part of their daily lives. There wasn't a specific moment when this happened. It just happened, naturally, as if it had always been this way. It was a rainy Tuesday when Rowan arrived from work directly at Claire's apartment. He had a key now. Claire had insisted, after the 3rd time, he was left waiting in the rain because she was at the market with Emily. "I'm home," he announced, taking off his wet coat. "Rowan," Emily ran to hug him. "Can you help me with my homework? It's hard." "Of course. Let me say hi to your mom first." Claire was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The smell of sautéed vegetables filled the small apartment, creating a cozy atmosphere that contrasted with the rain outside. "Hi," he said, lightly kissing her cheek. It was a gesture that had become natural over the weeks, without planning or discussion. It just happened. "Hi. How was work?" "Better now," he said, and he wasn't being polite. It was true. Rowan went to the living room table where Emily had spread out notebooks, pencils, and an expression of childish frustration. "What do we have here?" he asked, sitting next to her. "English homework. I have to write the names of 10 animals, but I don't know how to spell some of them. Let's see, which ones have you done? Cat, dog, bird, fish." Emily pointed to each word written in a child's careful handwriting. "They're all correct. Very good. Which ones are missing?" "Butterfly," Emily said, making a face. "It's too hard." "How do you think you spell butterfly?" Emily thought for a moment, biting the tip of her pencil. "With a B." "Exactly. With a B. Now try." Emily began to write slowly. B-U-T-T. "That's it. Keep going." From the kitchen, Claire watched the scene while stirring the sauté. There was something deeply touching in seeing Rowan bent over Emily's notebook, with the infinite patience that only someone who truly cares can have. "B-U-T-T-E-R-F-L-Y, Emily said. "Proud? Perfect. You're very smart. Now it's elephant. How do you spell elephant?" "Think about the sound, elephant. What letter does it start with?" That's right," Claire smiled, continuing to cook. It was amazing how Rowan could turn homework into a game. Emily, who always resisted her lessons, was genuinely excited. "Rowan," Emily said after finishing elephant, "are you always going to live with us?" The question came out with the direct simplicity of children, but it carried a weight that made both Rowan and Claire stop what they were doing. "Why do you ask?" Rowan said softly. "Because I like you here, and Mommy likes you too." "I can tell." Claire felt her face flush. It was true, but hearing it from Emily's mouth made it all the more real. "I like being here too," Rowan said, glancing quickly at Claire in the kitchen. "A lot. So you can stay?" "If your mom lets me." Emily ran to the kitchen. "Mommy, can Rowan live with us?" Claire almost dropped the spoon she was holding. "Emily, he helps with homework. He's funny, he makes you laugh, and he makes better pancakes than you." "Hey!" Claire protested, laughing despite her embarrassment. Rowan approached the kitchen, seeing the tension on Claire's face. "Emily," he said, "these are grown-up conversations. Your mom and I will talk about it, okay?" "Okay. But I think it would be nice." "I think so too," Rowan said, looking at Claire. Dinner was as always, relaxed, full of Emily's stories about school, laughter at Rowan's jokes, the feeling of normalcy that all 3 of them had begun to value. "Rowan," Emily said as they ate dessert, "can you teach me how to make those napkin flowers again?" "Of course, but only after you finish your homework." "I already finished. You helped me, remember?" "That's right, so let's do it." After dinner, while Claire washed the dishes, Rowan and Emily sat on the living room floor with colourful napkins. Rowan showed each fold with patience, and Emily tried to imitate his movements. "Like this?" she asked, holding a slightly crumpled napkin. "Almost. Here, let me show you." Rowan guided her little hands, helping her make the right folds. Claire watched from the kitchen, drying the dishes slowly to prolong the moment of observation. There was something profoundly right about that scene. Rowan on the floor with Emily, both of them focused on a simple task, laughing when something went wrong, celebrating when it went right. It was the kind of moment Claire had always dreamed of for her daughter. "I did it," Emily shouted, holding an almost perfect napkin flower. "It's beautiful." "You're an artist. I'll make one for you, one for me and one for Mommy." "Great idea." Claire finished putting away the dishes and joined them on the living room floor. It was a small apartment, but at that moment it seemed immense, full of possibilities. "Look, Mommy." Emily showed her creations. "I made flowers for our family." Family. The word came out naturally from Emily's mouth, as if it had always been obvious. Claire felt her heart race. "They're beautiful, sweetie." "Now you have to talk about Rowan living here," Emily said with the determination of a child who has decided something important. "Emily," Claire began. "It's bath time," Rowan said, saving Claire from embarrassment. "Now go on. Your mum and I will talk." "Okay, but you promise to talk properly." "We promise," Claire said. After Emily went to take a bath, Rowan and Claire were left alone in the living room. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, but it was filled with expectation. "Sorry about Emily's question," Claire said. "She still doesn't understand." "Claire," Rowan interrupted gently. "I want to live here." She looked at him, surprised by his frankness. "I want to wake up every day knowing I'll see you. I want to help Emily with her homework every day, not just sometimes. I want to cook with you. I want my clothes to be mixed with yours on the clothesline." Claire felt her heart beat faster. "I want to be part of your lives officially, not as a visitor, not as a friend who shows up, as family." "Rowan, I know it's early. I know it might seem rushed, but what we have here..." He gestured to the apartment. "This is real. This is what I've always wanted and never knew existed." Claire was silent for a moment, processing his words. "And if it doesn't work out? And if it does? Emily might get used to it and then suffer if you change your mind." "Claire," Rowan took her hands. "Look at me." She looked. "I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to leave. I'm not him." The reference to Emily's father was implied and but clear. "Mommy!" Emily shouted from the bathroom. "I forgot my towel." "I'm coming." Claire stood up, but Rowan held her arm. "Think about what I said, okay?" Claire nodded and went to help Emily. When she returned, Rowan was organizing the toys scattered around the living room. Another automatic gesture, as if it had always been part of the routine. "Rowan," she said. He stopped and looked at her. "Yes," would be the answer. "Yes, yes, you can live here. Yes, I want you to be part of our lives officially. Yes, I also want to wake up every day knowing you'll be here." The smile that spread across Rowan's face was like the sun appearing after a storm. "Really? Really?" He crossed the room in 3 steps and hugged her, lifting her off the floor. Claire laughed, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. "Mommy." Emily appeared in her pajamas. "How did you talk?" "We did," Claire said, still in Rowan's arms. And Rowan is going to live with us." "Really?" Emily shouted, jumping for joy. "Really?" said Rowan, putting Claire down and kneeling to hug Emily. "Now we're a real family," Emily said. Claire watched Rowan hug her daughter, both of them laughing and celebrating, and felt her heart completely full. Not with fear or worry, but with gratitude. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't seem scary. It seemed perfect. 6 months had passed since Rowan moved into the apartment. Life had taken on a new, richer, more complete form than any of the 3 had imagined possible. Claire no longer worked as a cleaner. Now she occupied a desk at the building's reception, answering calls, organizing mail, and managing the executives' schedules. Linda had retired, and Rowan had suggested Claire for the position. "So you know this building better than anyone," he had said. "And you have a way of treating people that makes all the difference." He was right. Claire adapted quickly, and soon the executives were commenting on how the reception had become more efficient and welcoming. 3 nights a week after work, Claire went straight to college. She had managed to get a partial scholarship for the nursing program, And Rowan covered the rest without making a fuss about it. It was just another household bill, he would say. "How was class today?" Rowan would always ask when she got home. "Hard, but good," was Claire's most common answer. "I'm learning about anatomy." "It's fascinating." Rowan listened to every detail, genuinely interested. He helped with her studies when he could, took care of Emily on the nights Claire had exams. On this Friday afternoon, Claire arrived home from college earlier than usual. She found Rowan in the kitchen preparing dinner, with Emily sitting on the counter helping. "You're early," Emily said, running to hug her mother. "The professor cancelled the last class," Claire explained. "I couldn't remember the last time we had a Friday night all together." "Then tonight is movie and popcorn night," Rowan declared. During dinner, Emily talked about a school project where she had to draw her family. "I drew the three of us," she said, showing the paper. "Rowan is in the middle because he's the tallest." "The teacher asked if Rowan is my dad," Emily continued. "I said he's my Rowan. It's different, but it's better." Rowan felt his chest tighten with emotion. Being Emily's Rowan was a title he carried with pride. After dinner and the movie Salchen, when Emily went to sleep, Rowan and Claire stayed in the living room talking. It was a ritual of theirs, the time of day when they shared thoughts and plans. "Claire," Rowan said after a comfortable silence, "can I tell you something?" "Always." He was quiet for a moment, organizing his words. "I always wanted to start a family," he said finally, "but I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That people would be interested in what I had, not who I was. Afraid of never knowing if someone truly loved me." Claire held his hand, understanding. "But with you," Rowan continued, "I feel like I want to build this for real. Because I know you see me, not what I own. Rowan, you knew me when I was just a guy who showed up at your work. You accepted me into your home when all I could offer was my presence." Claire felt her eyes burn. "And I want to build a life with you. Not because I need to take care of you, but because you make me want to be better." From the hallway, a small voice interrupted. "Are you talking about being a family?" Emily appeared at the door, her hair messy and holding hope. "Emily, you should be sleeping," said Claire, "but I heard you talking. Are we going to be a real family?" Rowan and Claire looked at each other. "We are," Rowan said honestly. Emily ran to the couch and jumped between them. "Like, official." "If you want," said Rowan. "I do," Emily shouted, then covered her mouth. "Sorry, but I really want to." She looked at Rowan with those serious blue eyes. "I always wanted someone to call Dad." The simplicity of the sentence hit Rowan like a bolt of lightning. He felt his eyes well up with tears. "And I always wanted someone to call me that," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Emily threw herself into his arms. "So now you're my dad. Can I call you Dad?" "You can," Rowan barely managed to speak. "I'd love that." Claire watched the scene with her heart overflowing. There were no grand promises, no dramatic declarations, just three people choosing to be together. "Group hug," Emily declared. They hugged there on the couch, the three of them together, and Claire realized that this was exactly what family meant. Not blood, not papers, not conventions, choice. Presence. Love built day after day. "Dad," Emily said, testing the word. "Yes, daughter," Rowan replied, and the word came out naturally. "Now can you teach me to drive when I grow up?" "Of course, but only when you're 18. 15, 18, 17, 18 and not a day before." Emily sighed dramatically. "Okay, but you promise you'll be here?" Rowan looked at Claire, then at Emily. "I promise. I'll be here for everything." "Your grandchildren?" Claire laughed. "Our grandchildren," Rowan corrected, looking at her with a smile that promised exactly that, a complete future built together. That night, after Emily finally went to sleep, Rowan and Claire lay in bed talking softly. "So now you're a father," said Claire. "Now I'm a father," he repeated. "How does it feel?" "Complete," said Rowan without hesitation. "For the first time in my life, complete." "Me too. Even with all the changes, the studies." "Especially because of it," said Claire. "You didn't give me a ready-made life. You gave me the chance to build my own life." Rowan kissed her gently. "I love you, Claire. I love you too. And tomorrow, Tomorrow we continue building. That was it. There were no perfect endings or magical resolutions, just the daily choice to be present, to build something real, to be a family, and for the three of them, that was more than enough. It was everything. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.